under my feet. Ancient beat, they spike on the good drum and the soul of the rig so sweet. Oh, by later that evening, all I drink had me feeling fine. And when I reached the rig and screamed fast, but Lord, I wanted to prance. Oh, the music was jamming, Lord, it put me into a trance. And everybody was looking at me as I made up my own new dance. Oh, call the fire engine. Run, tell 'em come quick. I could feel my temperature.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a special broadcast tonight. I'm Janae Noel, joined with Shanique Miller as our coverage of Hurricane Fiona continues. And this, Justin, we're just getting information now that all warnings have now been discontinued for the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos Islands. So some good news tonight. All day we've been bracing for this storm in the southeast Bahamas. We had residents evacuated out of Maguana. Those residents sent earlier today to Exuma to ride out the storm. But thankfully, all of the prayers have been answered tonight. This first storm expected to impact the Bahama Islands have dissipated at this time. And today we expected those conditions to hit Maguana, Inagua, Samanaki, Acklins, Crooked Island, and we all know all too well the effects of just one named storm, one hurricane. This time it's a Category 3, and it's moving now its way on to Bermuda after wreaking havoc really in Puerto Rico, in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Lots of rainfall. We know we have very close ties to Turks and Caicos Islands. Many of our relatives, family, friends live there, and we've been getting videos all day, reports all day about just the devastation and the level of devastation, the rain and the wind that Fiona brought with it today. But as it made that westward turn into our chain of islands, we are happy to report tonight that all of those weather situations have been put away, at least for now. Shanique, I get you in on the conversation because all week we've been talking about this storm, preparing for this storm all weekend. Also joining us in the conversation tonight is meteorologist Wayne Neely from the Bahamas Department of Meteorology. Shanique, I'll let you have a go, and then we'll go to Wayne, who's telling us, don't get comfortable just yet. There are still some more active storm situations in the tropics that we should be prepared for. Shanique?
Absolutely. Good evening to you, Janae, and all of you watching. Good evening. Of course, we are breathing a huge sigh of relief. I mean, this is nothing to take us just lightly. We saw what the storm did in the Puerto Rico, and of course, with the videos coming in from Turks and Caicos earlier today and throughout the day. And particularly Maguana, was bracing. And obviously, as you said, prayers answered, everyone very happy. Those who needed to be evacuated were evacuated because we learned from Dorian that you take no chances. And of course, we continue to watch the tropics and see what develops there. But we're just happy that Fiona is well on her way, headed in another direction. And this time we've been spared.
Good. Thanks for that. And Wayne, if you could just tell us what other things should we be mindful of? We know this storm is now out of our area of concern, although we're still feeling some wind and rain of the outer bands of that storm. But Fiona now out of our hair, technically. What else should we be on the alert for?
Well, you shouldn't let your guard down just yet. We have 2 additional storms out there that we're following. One that's just coming off the African coast, and the next one that's in the southern Caribbean Sea. And that one, the National Anchor Center is giving that a 90% chance in 5 days of developing, and 70% chance in 3 days, in 2 days, 2 to 3 days. So don't let your guards down yet. And I spoke to some friends of mine in Puerto Rico. They said they had from this storm, they got 29 inches, which is a record amount of rainfall for Puerto Rico. And just to give you a comparison, in 1999, the greatest amount of rainfall that we had in the hurricane was Hurricane Floyd of 1999, and that had 29 inches, and that was over 4 days. So they had 29 inches in just 1 day. So that was a record amount of rainfall for them.
And you said 29 inches of rainfall, record amount, and those conditions are dire. We understand at this point in Puerto Rico and the Turks and Caicos Islands, we understand they have about 80% of their power off. So they remain without power tonight, and that has been the situation all day. But also in Maguana, the power has been off from about 2 o'clock today. Our Devontae Hanna was there from yesterday afternoon as the storm began to intensify, and there was a fire earlier today, further impacting the weather conditions and the power challenges on that island, and they are not sure when power will be restored. Devontae, are you there?
Yes, Janaea, I don't know if you can hear me. Good evening to you. We are still in Maguana. As you mentioned, they suffered a fire today where 2 utility poles would have caught on fire from the inside of the pole, we understand, and the fire would have started to go down into the pole, and volunteer rescues would have started to out that fire as soon as possible. But now this has left the entire island without power and water for the foreseeable future. They are now waiting for this weather to now dissipate so that they can now get on the ground and sort of correct that issue, because living without light and water is not something that many people would fancy, Janaea. But of course, just a few moments ago, the conditions came to a lull, but now the wind is starting to pick up. We are actually at that bay area where I was earlier today, and there was no flooding. So residents are particularly happy about that. This area, they say, gets flooded with just some rain and a little bit of high tide. But I'm standing on dry ground, thankfully, as we get information that all of those tropical storm warnings have been released on the Bahamas. But Janaea, of course, a very fortunate turn of events here for the residents of Maguana, who said that they couldn't handle a Category 3 storm. In fact, many challenges arose. This storm actually brought to light many issues. In fact, the island has no hardware store. There was also a challenge with food supplies getting onto the island, dealing with the mailboat. We spoke with some residents earlier today, and they lamented those conditions as well, and they are asking for the government to do something so that those things can change in the event that there is another storm like Fiona that hits this island.
Well, actually, we don't have much difficulties, just that the material, we have to get material from all the way Nassau, and, the mail service and stuff like that take a little while, so in the back of far, that. Yeah, so it ain't like Andros, Elutra, Exuma, and places like that, what have their own hardware store.
So there's no hardware store on the island?
No, we don't have hardware.
Wow. And how long does the mailboat usually take to get
Actually, 3 days. 2 to 3 days, yeah.
So the mailboat really comes twice a week?
Twice a week. Yeah, twice a week. Yeah.
You guys wasn't able to prepare properly because everything happened so quickly. Talk a little bit about that.
Exactly, yeah. We get caught off guard, and yeah. And at the time when we get to find out about this storm, I think the mailboat left already. Yeah. So we really get caught off guard. But we have a low land area. Yeah.
How bad does it usually get without a storm?
We have about, when is like, if it rains for about a day straight, we get about 3 to 4 inches of rain.
Yeah, 3-4 inches of rain.
Yeah. Lot of water.
Last time we had to use a dump truck and a tractor to get everybody like back and forward. And each settlement, the people couldn't really come with their house because it was a lot of water. And then, in the government don't really take it serious and tell you all guys come over and they see what's going on. But the island is poor. It's poor.
We need more infrastructure.
Yeah, we need more more jobs and more, more shops. And because we got one shop, so when that closes in the day, in the nighttime, there's no food. So it's poor. So we could get, it wouldn't be the government, it would be our native to come, and if the government could assist the native, it'll be much more better too,
Yes, well, Janaea, there you have it. These residents, they say they are fed up with the conditions here on Maguana, and they're just hoping that they can get some relief as they prepare for what will be another set of busy hurricane seasons as we deal with climate change. Every year it seems as if the storms are getting worse and the tropics are getting more and more busy as Mr. Wayne Neely would have said several times throughout this year. And even speaking with some residents, they said that watching Hurricane Dorian in 2019 and seeing those footage come up on their screens every year, this now creates a heightened sense of preparation, but there's only so much they can do with the limited resources that they have. And of course, as we deal with the last bit of Fiona, which we hope will be the last bit of Fiona, they're hoping that things could get better before it can get worse. Reporting from Iguana, I'm Devontae.
Before I let you go, I wanted to ask you quickly, Devontae, before you go, I wanted to ask you just about those residents who would have sought shelter and those who were evacuated today, and was there a precursor for persons who were removed out of the island, and the general mood of persons on the island who remained and wanted to seek refuge in the shelter tonight? Did they not feel that their homes or properties were in a suitable condition for them to remain, or what was the general mood of those residents on the island today?
Well, when they heard that the storm would have transformed into a Category 3 that sent off the antennas of many residents across this island. Of course, here in Abrams Bay, which is the capital, is very low-lying, very susceptible to flooding. As I mentioned, this area floods very easily. Even as they said in the clip earlier, they said that, they had to get to higher ground as soon as possible because they know that this island cannot handle a Category 3 storm. And they've said that very bluntly over and over, and it has not been just one or two residents. In fact, even the island administrator said, they're hoping for the best, but if not, just prayers. And they say that is what has kept them, and that is why they've moved into the shelter. Earlier today, around maybe about 12 o'clock, there were 17 people in the shelter here at Abrams Bay. When we went down to Pirates Well earlier in the newscast, there were just a few people there. That holds about 100 people, but just maybe about 20, if that much, is there at that shelter. But of course, residents definitely breathing a sigh of relief as this storm seems to be moving as quickly as possible off the coast of Iguana.
Thanks so much for Devontae, and hopefully we'll be able to get you out of there as soon as possible. No light, no water. We sent Devontae those down there with a power pack that they've been running all day, and also a Wi-Fi system. And so when the power goes from that unit without any power on the island, it will be very difficult for us to make communication with them. So Devontae, as soon as you can, as soon as the all clear is given, we'll try to make some preparations to have you return home. Thanks so much to our Devontae Hannah and our Matthew Ryan Farquharson in Iguana for providing coverage for us. Devontae, we'll make contact before the end of this broadcast. Well, the Turks and Caicos Islands, they felt the brunt of Hurricane Fiona. Leah Cooper has been in communication with officials on that island, and she joins us live in studio to tell us some more details about what happened in the Turks and Caicos today. Leah?
Well, Janaea, storm conditions continue to affect the Turks and Caicos Islands since the wee hours of the morning. Hurricane Fiona has been barreling its way across the chain of islands for the past 24 hours, moving toward the north-northwest near 8 miles per hour. Acting Governor Anya Williams, in a publicly circulated video, describes the country's experience as phenomenal, adding that while initially preparing for a tropical storm, Fiona entered their shores as a Category 3 hurricane.
I'm pleased to report that so far we've had no reported deaths, casualties, or serious injuries across the Turks and Caicos Islands, and that most islands have fared off quite well. A number of persons have been raising concerns with us regarding the all clear being issued, and I want to assure residents that we are in close contact with the Bahamas Met Office. As for the 6 p.m. advisory, the Turks and Caicos is still experiencing adverse conditions and will continue to do so over the course of the next 24 hours. And so we hope to have an all clear sometime later this evening, but as it stands right now, we're still asking residents to remain indoors.
Add to that, the acting governor, in a situation report at 8:30 this morning, says that there were a total of 165 persons in hurricane shelters across the Turks and Caicos Islands. A resident in the Providenciales area also telling Eyewitness News today that a considerable number of residents are without power at this time.
Some areas where they do have flooding have already been, I don't know if it was naturally disconnected or because of the winds, but there are at least about 5 or 6 major areas in Bravo alone that are without electricity.
FortisTCI, the country's power provider, also noting that 40% of the country's customers are experiencing outages in a statement released earlier today. While island-wide outages exist in North Caicos, Middle Caicos, Grand Turk, South Caicos, and Salt Key, Acting Governor Williams says they have given approval for the island's utility providers to begin carrying out assessment works and deploying crews where necessary. Minister of Physical Planning and Infrastructure Development, Akira Missick, also giving an update.
We have been in contact with the island of South Caicos, who have reported minimal damages, has been assessed on properties on the island, as well as localized flooding, not to the extent that we're normally used to. And so I want to say thank you to the team of PWD in the island of South Caicos for activating our hurricane preparation plan. We will have to do some repair work at the wellness center, but again, the damage is minimal and it is able for us to address it. And speaking with the Minister of DDME, who is on the ground in North Caicos, he has advised that several large trees have fallen into the roadways, and so once we are able to tomorrow, with the all clear, we will activate our cleanup teams to assist in opening up the roadways so that residents are able to traverse through North Caicos.
And while Fiona is expected to intensify, another resident outlines his experience thus far.
Well, I mean, at current, there's still a lot of heavy winds, not much rain. The wind is more intermittent than consistent. So you have strong gusts of winds that blow for a period of time, and then it kind of dies down a bit and then picks back up. Whereas earlier this morning, the wind was much more consistent, constant heavy winds. Sounded like freight trains were outside.
Now, at last report, maximum sustained winds have increased from 115 miles per hour to near 125 miles per hour. Fiona is moving toward the north-northwest near 8 miles per hour. This general motion is expected to continue tonight, followed by a turn towards the north on Wednesday, a turn towards the north-northeast, with an increase in forward speed is expected on Thursday. On the forecast track, the center of Fiona will gradually move away from the Turks and Caicos Islands tonight and Wednesday and approach Bermuda on late Thursday. Reporting live in studio, I'm Leah Cooper. Back to you, Janaea.
Thanks so much for that, Leah. And Shanique, Wayne, it looks like all of our prayers have been answered tonight, especially the fact that there have been no reported deaths. We know all too well about being in this situation in a storm watch, being through Dorian, reporting on Dorian, and to come to this point, it's a lot of trepidation. You heard from Devontae, the minute that residents heard that this storm had intensified to a Category 3, there was immediate concern. Their concern also is that we have these remote islands that do not have all of the resources. It's no secret. They're not as prepared as they should be. And in hurricane seasons, we often wonder, we often question, why does it take so long? Why don't we have the resources? Hurricane season begins from June. Before we get on that conversation, we do have the island administrator from Acklands on the line, Ms. Velma Colebrook. Are you there? According to the producer, she's on the line tonight just to give us an update on what is happening in Acklands. Ms. Colebrook?
Yes, good evening, Bahamas, and good evening to you all. We have started showers. The shelter remain open. We have social service, and the shelter manager is there, Ms. Smith and Ms. Diane Ford. We also have at the shelter the defense force. They're there. They're making shifts. And they also patrolling the grounds. So we have some assistance there.
Do we have any residents in those shelters?
No, no. The residents remain at home. Everybody remain at home at this time.
Were there any area of concern? We heard earlier from Meguana residents that there was a challenge getting materials, plywood, resources, that sort of thing, that there was a challenge with mailboat services. Anything of that sort impacting?
The mailboat was here on Saturday.
Okay, so you were adequately prepared.
So yes, we are prepared. And so persons that watch Mailboat on Saturday getting their food, social service, they're sought out also. But we don't have that challenge here in our clips.
Right. And so the concern now is that we could very well be in this exact same place next week, as there are more storms that could develop in the week or so. Can you tell us about whether or not there's any increased level of trepidation among the residents who were anticipating the brunt of this storm?
Well, the transportation, I know there are bus transportation in the north and the south. And so that part, we had our meeting, and so things are taken care of. And the chief consular, I know he made, contacts with persons just in case. But everything is taken care of right now in Auckland. We don't have those challenges at this time.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Colebrook, for giving us that update. So glad to hear that the residents in Auckland and all of the other islands fared well during the passage of Hurricane Fiona. Still a Category 3, still churning in the tropics. Shanique, we want to talk more about, the level of preparedness, what we see and what we've also experienced in the Family Islands. And I'll let you comment on that.
Janae, it's obvious that the people of Mayaguana did as much as they could have done. But what's really concerning is to hear residents talk about the fact that there's insufficient food, insufficient supplies in terms of being able to batten down the houses properly in other buildings. And so something obviously must be addressed. I know we must commend, obviously, Acting Prime Minister Cooper, who went in and got the most vulnerable residents, took them to Exuma, and those were people who perhaps had existing conditions, didn't want to be stuck on an island if the storm had, the brunt of the storm had hit the island. But the residents who stayed and who wanted to brave the conditions out in the storm, they certainly obviously need to be safe in wonderful shelters where there are supplies that will outlast whatever the conditions are on the island. And so obviously these far-flung islands to our south, a lot must be looked into to ensure that the residents can brave out a storm, that they can do so safely, that their homes are safe, that they have sufficient supplies at hand. How does that even begin to be addressed? We don't know, but obviously it has to be, because there are residents there this evening who complained and spoke with Devontae earlier today about what was not on the island, what's lacking as they were facing a storm.
Wayne, I'll let you join in and just talk about how unpredictable these weather systems can be. And I think we saw some of that with Dorian. While we anticipated its magnitude, there was not a lot of understanding of its strength and how fast and how long it would have stayed over the northern Bahamas. Can you talk about that and how we should always exercise that increased level of preparedness when we're dealing with these storms that are becoming more and more ferocious in the coming years?
Yes, definitely. These storms are definitely coming much stronger now. And what hurricanes do, people look at the hurricane track and just see a long straight line, but hurricanes don't actually. In meteorological school, we had to plot the tracks of hurricanes, and they zigzag. It's not a normal smooth path that you normally see on TV that makes it. Hurricanes, what we call wobble. They move to the left or right. Sometimes that wobble can mean a big difference between where it's hit, let's say if it's hit New Providence or further west to Andros, or hit Eleuthera, that wobble, one wobble could mean a big difference. So you have to prepare for a hurricane and always be alert, because the track forecast can always change, and more than likely they will. Many of you have seen the track forecast of several, including Dorian.
So when we follow those monitors, I'm always looking past, it's not going to hit that way. No. And then maybe an hour or two later, it's something totally different.
Yes, that's what you have to understand. That's how hurricanes are, the tracking of hurricanes. If you look at them, if you really track them in perfect unison like we do in school, you'd see that they don't move that straight line. They zigzag, they wobble left and right. And that could be that could be miles difference. That could be a different island added to forecast, or an island taken away. And clearly Fiona, we had a track going just east of the Bahamas initially, and then went further west now, and the track that's experiencing now is the final one that was settled on.
So when we get these all clear warnings, how much longer do we have to be on guard? Because we talk about how unpredictable it may be and there's a weather system moving away. What's the likelihood that it will make some bizarre change in direction?
It's very unusual for a hurricane to make unusual. Once the all clear is given, the meteorologists actually examine all those possible scenarios, and if that hurricane could could loop back or something like that, they would never put an all clear. The all clear means that the hurricane has left the warning area and all warnings have been lifted. But most people think when they hear all clear, that doesn't mean that you go on the street. That means that you should exercise due caution and the first people on the street should be the emergency operators, those persons like BPL and those do service, because when people, as soon as the storm is over and they hear it all clear, they want to go out on the streets. And that's dangerous because sometimes there could be down electrical poles or electrical wires. Some of them might still be live and you can cause death from that.
Well, hopefully BPL in Meguana is able to get to that island or have manpower on that island quick enough to restore the power, which also means restoration of water on that island. But was this predicted to be a very active season? We
Yes.
had a very calm situation from the beginning, and normally this is the peak season when we see a lot of activity happening.
Yes, initially we were going for 19 named storms and 9 hurricanes and 4 major, and so far that has not panned out as we expected. And interestingly, August is one of the most least active storms on record for this storm, for this season, and for any season of that matter. For some strange and unusual, the conditions were ideal. The waters were extremely warm. The winds were particularly strong. And initially, what also happened was that you had the presence of Saharan dust, Saharan air, which inhibits the formation, and that lasted. Typically, that normally ends from around the 15th of July to maybe the end of July at most. But this one lasted a much longer time, and so which meant that the Saharan does inhibit any storms from forming by taking the moisture out of the atmosphere, and that played a big number. And then August came. Typically August you have an average of about 6 hurricanes. In July you have average of 2 hurricanes, June 1 hurricane. But this year the record has been unusually low, and we didn't forecast. No one did, and that's the thing with hurricanes. We as a meteor, they're very unpredictable. So that's why you almost must always never let your guard down when it comes to hurricanes.
Talking about never letting your guard down and preparation, Shanique, we've been down the hurricane road a long time, and me being from Grand Bahama, Wilma, Francis, Jean, Joaquin, Matthew, Dorian, all of those storms impacting really the North Islands, the Central Bahamas, that sort of thing. But in my view, we should be at a level where we have mandated hurricane kits in every home, mandated supplies, going out on the weekend just to prepare the team, ensuring that there are life vests for every family member, ensuring that there are flashlights, ensuring that there are rope to tie people together. And these are just some of the things that over the years you've learned that you didn't even think about that you would have to need. And then when you hear about residents in the Southern Islands, for me, first order of business as a representative or whomever as an official, to just ensure that is priority. We know that there are other things that take precedence over these things, schools, infrastructure, that sort of thing. But the fact that we are so vulnerable, the fact that we are pushing a climate change for change agenda, I want to send a call out to the decision makers out there, the policy makers, persons who just have a genuine care for what is happening, that this is something that we also need to put on the list, a mandatory safety kit. And Shanique, I heard that discussion being talked about and discussed in the House of Assembly. I think it was after Matthew, that we should give these things some consideration.
We obviously need to, because, I'll tell you, Janaea, you and I both have covered many storms, and we've heard meteorologists after meteorologists like Wayne tell us about how to prepare for a hurricane season, and they've done it for years. And it doesn't take an elected official to come in and assist you. And mind you, it's great if they can, and perhaps they should. But we must take that responsibility for each household, each family. And I'll tell you, I mean, shoots, a lot of us are guilty of not having prepared sufficiently, but we must begin to take active and play an active role in being prepared for a hurricane. Having food items that last a month, as we can see that sometimes, look at Dorian, there were many things that were not in place in a good amount of time. And so have food supply that lasts a month, medication, water, as you said, life vests, perhaps now even rain boots, that you can go in the water and put those on and not, if you come across a wire, not have to be concerned about being electrocuted, etc. I mean, this message has been preached for decades. And so it's about time that
the same way we prepare to take a trip to travel. We going away the next morning, the suitcase by the door. Your outfit then pressed and that on the door hang out waiting for you to put on. And I think we just need to have that same type of attitude when we talk about hurricane preparedness. Be just as prepared as we go into the States the next day for, hurricane and hurricane preparedness. Again, before we close out this broadcast, we want to take it back to Wayne just to tell us about these remaining systems out there, what we should be mindful of, and the level of preparedness because it is so unpredictable. We're keeping it short and sweet tonight because, as you heard, we are now in the all clear. All of the warnings have fallen away, and so we can hopefully sleep good tonight knowing that residents on those southern islands, our friends and family, will be safe. I'll let you have the final word.
Okay, well, there's two systems we're watching out there. One that's just coming off the African coast. That one bears to be watched. And also one in the southern Caribbean. See, that one is more interesting to me as a meteorologist because that one we could get potentially impacted by that one. And so we do advise you to pay close attention to all future alerts from the Department of Meteorology about those systems. And never let your guard down because, as we can see, we've seen with Dorian what a devastating hurricane can do. So now it is everybody has to be prepared for these storms, whether you want to or not, because they're going to impact our lives in some way or the other.
Certainly some words to live by, especially during this time. You simply never know when that one storm can just bring such a great level of devastation and destruction. And we've all have witnessed, we are still paying the cost following the monster storm of Dorian, which also took many, many lives. We thank you all for joining us and for keeping up with our hurricane coverage. We thank our team in Maguana, Devontae Hanna, Ryan Farquharson. Thank you so much for the service. Be sure to try to get out of there as soon as you can. And thank you all for watching, for staying up with us. Also, a huge thank you for the team who worked tirelessly today to ensure that we had all of the content, production, newscast, digital team. We thank you so much. Thank you for staying with us. That does it for us at the Eyewitness News team. It's certainly been a pleasure having you in our company tonight. Have a great evening. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7 p.m.